The end of the Cold War and the collapse of the Soviet Union came as an unpleasant surprise for the defense industries of many countries. Former Soviet republics inherited large amounts of outdated military equipment, along with a pile of ambitious projects that were no longer affordable. Western states, meanwhile, entered the new reality with oversized armies. Their arsenals were packed with vehicles built for a global conflict that fortunately never happened. Reunified Germany felt these changes especially sharply. It suddenly found itself with hundreds of Soviet T-72s and its own Leopard 2s at the same time. The Soviet legacy was disposed of almost immediately. Vehicles incompatible with NATO standards were written off and sold. The role of Germany's main battle tank went to the Leopard 2, but there were simply too many of them. Maintaining such a vast fleet required enormous spending on repairs, upgrades, and crew training. And since the main potential enemy had simply vanished from the map, those expenses no longer made sense. As a result, production of new Leopard 2s was halted, while surplus armored vehicles began flowing abroad, not as quickly as the T-72, but steadily. There had been buyers before, such as the Netherlands and Switzerland. Now, however, the geography of customers has expanded significantly. In 1994, Sweden purchased German armor. In a tender that brought together arms manufacturers from around the world, the Leopard 2 came out on top. At first, the Swedes leased 160 vehicles of the 2A4 version and designated them STRV-121. After testing the tanks, they bought a batch of upgraded 2A5s with substantial modifications. The model, known as the STRV-122, received additional armor, a modern fire control system, and an upgraded running gear. The circle of customers grew rapidly. In the early 2000s, Finland and Poland moved away from Soviet T-72s, purchasing more than 100 Leopard 2A4s as replacements. Later, German main battle tanks were ordered by Indonesia, Hungary, Qatar, and several other countries. Interestingly, since 1992, German industry has not built a single new Leopard 2 for the Bundeswehr. Hundreds of used tanks or vehicles taken out of storage went for export, while German factories only periodically brought older machines up to modern standards. For example, together with the Polish company PGZ, Germany developed the Leopard 2PL. It received composite armor modules, new turret drive systems, and an updated fire control system. Similar improvements were introduced for Indonesia as well. The Leopard 2RI features reinforced protection for the turret and hull sides, along with modernized electronics. Truly radical conversions of the German tank, however, never became bestsellers. The Leopard 2 PSO, designed for urban combat and fitted with a 1,650 horsepower engine, never progressed beyond the prototype stage. Variants with new caliber guns and autoloaders also failed to attract buyers. Older Leopard 1s, on the other hand, retained a certain level of demand. Around the turn of the century, Brazil bought several batches of these tanks from Belgian and German stocks. Largely outdated but cheap and still effective, the tanks even took part in a tender in Greece, although the final contract went to the Leopard 2 instead. Various versions of the Leopard 1 also remained in Canadian service for many years. By the early 2020s, Germany had sold off most of its Leopard 2s. Of the once massive steel armadas, only a few hundred vehicles remained, and not all of them were combat-ready. The military was clearly unhappy with this situation, and Germany began restoring tank production. The 2A7 modification and its Hungarian variant became the last models created by rebuilding older hulls. Future German upgrades are planned to be produced from scratch for the first time in more than 3 decades.